I'm still working inside the document called natureguide.ai, found inside the 10 Pathfinder folder. I've gone ahead and selected my blob brush tool and established the settings that I recommended in the previous exercise, so I'm ready to begin painting. I am painting with a mouse, strictly out of a sense of solidarity with you mouse people. If I were doing this project on my own, I would avail myself of one of the two Wacom tablets that are sitting right next to me. I've got an Intuos 4 on one side and Intuos 3 on the other. They're mocking me, is what they're doing, as I paint with this mouse. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and paint inside of this guide area, just because I want to more or less match what I did the last time. But notice that the blob brush is not snapping to the guides, just because it doesn't snap the edge of its brush strokes to the guidelines. Also notice that what I'm painting still doesn't look remotely like foliage. It looks perhaps not like a big red marshmallow, more like maybe opaque pudding or something like that, but it doesn't look like foliage. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to press Control-Z, Command-Z on a Mac once again, and I'm going to reduce the size of my brush by pressing the left bracket key a few times. And ultimately, I'm going to take that brush size down to, let's go ahead and check here by double-clicking on the blob brush icon in the toolbox. I'm going to take my size value down to 8 points and click OK. And then begin painting. Now, you're going to get a little work done at a time when you're painting so tiny like this, and focus on that edge detail for now. However, that's okay because we want those edges to be in fairly good shape. We'll revisit some of them later and add some more randomness to those edges. But for now, we want to do as good of a job as we can. But also, you can release and begin painting some more later if you want to. So you don't have to just sit there and jam on your mouse or hurt your wrist or anything like that. You can take multiple swipes, and I definitely recommend you do. And notice, I'll go ahead and twirl open this foliage layer. Notice we have a compound path, which means we must have a hole in there someplace. I'm going to paint the interior just a little bit to see if I can get that to go away. And sure enough, I did. I must have painted over the hole because it's no longer a compound path. Now it's a path. So you're only going to see compound path there if Illustrator's creating the compound path for you automatically when there's a hole someplace in the path. But notice every time I paint in additional details, as long as I'm painting with that same color and as long as my new brush stroke happens to be adjacent to the old one, as long as I'm painting over the old stuff, then I will continue to add to the path. And whenever I add something that results in a hole, notice I'll paint something like this. I've got a hole in the center. I switch it back to a compound path. I fill in the hole like so, and I'll have to do a pretty careful job there because I've made a big hole that I've got to fill in. Then I'll switch it back to path. So that's something to bear in mind as well, and we can always go back and add holes later. Right now, I'm just trying to get the work done. Oh, I just created another hole right there, so that's fine. If you paint in an area that does not overlap, so this new brush stroke does not overlap the old ones, then you'll add an additional path. However, if you then paint them together like so, you will fuse them back into a single path, or in my case, compound path. So really, the blob brush is a tool that has its own Unite Pathfinder operation built into it. So it's always uniting these various brush strokes to each other. And then go ahead and keep painting around the outskirts of this foliage here. And notice I'm not really trying that hard to stay inside of my little guideline. You can, if you want to. You can do a real scrupulous job of painting inside of that guideline if you want to, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to paint here and there. And the reason is because we can always go back and refine some of this information out here if we so desire using something like the eraser tool. So just what I urge you to do is just focus on getting all the way around the tree. And I tell you what, I'm not going to do all of this in front of you just because it's a little bit like watching paint dry, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be eloquent enough to narrate the entire traverse around this tree at this point. So I'll do a little work in front of you, and then I'm going to add some more foliage in the background, off stage, don't you know? And then I will revisit you. But this is basically the kind of work you need to do. You might also want to paint in some of these details in here, like so. And as you work your way into the tree, you want to keep your brush strokes a little more sporadic because there's no reason to fill in a bunch of detail inside the tree, or all the detail that is, because you do want a lot of branches to be revealed. Also, you may note that the tree doesn't always have foliage inside of it. So some areas all of a sudden demonstrate foliage, like the area that I'm painting in right now, and then other areas do not. Other areas are bald, like over there. Anyway, I'll paint in a little bit of information right there. I'll paint in some stuff. You get a sense for what I am doing. I'm now going to let you go do your own foliage painting for a little while, and then we'll check back with each other. I'll go ahead and save my progress, of course, so you can visit it. But really, it doesn't matter. As long as you are covering up all of this area that's represented by this guideline, you will be fine, because we're going to come back and revisit these details and make some additional modifications using some of Illustrator's other tools and functions in subsequent exercises.